Today, I want to talk to you about a message of profound hope, one that reminds us of a beautiful truth: God fights your battles. Life is full of challenges. Each of us has moments when we feel overwhelmed, uncertain, and outmatched by the battles we face. Whether it's a struggle at work, a relationship in turmoil, a health scare, or a deeply personal pain, we all encounter battles that seem too big for us to handle alone. In those moments, it's easy to feel helpless. But here's the good news: you don't have to fight alone. When life presents challenges, it's easy to feel isolated, like you're facing your struggles entirely alone. You may wonder if anyone understands or if anyone even notices what you're going through. But the truth is, even in the darkest, most difficult times, you are never truly alone. In every challenge, in every tear, and in every heartbreak, God is with you. His presence is constant, unwavering, and deeply compassionate, providing a source of comfort and strength that remains steady even when everything else feels uncertain. God's support is not just a vague or distant concept, it is a profound reality. In times of struggle, we can lean into his presence, trusting that he is there, understanding what we are going through better than anyone else ever could. He sees the full picture of our lives, and he's aware of the pressures, fears, and worries we carry. He knows our hearts, and even when we cannot fully express what we're feeling, he understands. He listens not only to our words, but to the deepest cries of our hearts, providing comfort when we need it most. Sometimes God's presence may be subtle, manifesting through the love and support of people around us, family, friends, or even strangers who offer kindness at the exact moment we need it. Other times we feel a sense of peace that seems to come from nowhere, a calm that reassures us we are being held by something greater than ourselves. This is God's presence making itself known, reminding us that we do not bear the weight of our struggles alone. There is always someone walking beside us, even when others may not fully understand what we're going through. When we feel alone, it's natural to question why we face certain struggles. We may even ask, where is God in all of this? But it's important to remember that God doesn't promise a life without hardship. Rather, he promises to be with us through every hardship. His presence is like a steady hand guiding us through the storms of life, a light that shines in our darkest moments, offering hope and reminding us that we are stronger than we feel. It's also crucial to remember that God's understanding goes beyond human limitations. Even the most well-meaning people in our lives may not always understand or know how to help us. They may offer words of encouragement, but they might not grasp the depth of our pain. However, God sees everything clearly. He knows the full story and understands what we need, even if we ourselves do not know. This profound understanding allows him to guide us in ways that others cannot, providing us with the strength and wisdom we need to persevere. Knowing that God is with us in our struggles can also shift how we approach our challenges. Instead of viewing them as insurmountable obstacles, we can see them as opportunities to deepen our faith and resilience. We may not always understand why we face certain struggles, but we can trust that God is using them to shape us, to strengthen us, and to bring us closer to him. Through these experiences, we learn to rely not solely on our own abilities, but on his strength and guidance. Moreover, this knowledge can give us a sense of peace and courage. We may not have all the answers, and we may still feel the weight of our burdens, but we can take each step forward with the assurance that we are not walking alone. We can face our struggles with faith, trusting that God is with us every step of the way, working behind the scenes in ways we may not yet see or understand. In times of difficulty, simply remembering that we are not alone can be incredibly powerful. It can transform our perspective, giving us the strength to persevere and the hope to look toward brighter days. God's love, comfort, and presence are always available to us. No matter how dark or difficult our journey may seem, he is there, walking with us, fighting for us, and carrying us through. We can rest in that assurance, knowing that we are deeply cared for and that we never have to face our struggles alone. In life, worry seems to come naturally. We worry about the future, our families, finances, health, and countless other things. Worry sneaks into our thoughts and fills us with what-if scenarios that lead us down a path of anxiety and fear. It's a mental weight that distracts us, holds us back, and sometimes even leaves us paralyzed. But what if we could replace that constant worry with trust, a deep trust that things are under control, even when they seem chaotic? This trust doesn't come from our own ability to fix every problem or know the future. It comes from placing our confidence in a higher power, knowing that God is in control. Trusting over worrying is an invitation to experience peace, even in uncertain times. Worry doesn't change anything about the circumstances we're facing, but trust allows us to release control of things we cannot change. Trusting God means acknowledging that there's a bigger plan at work, even if we can't see it. Life's challenges can feel overwhelming, and many of them are beyond our control. We can do our part, work hard, and plan, but ultimately the outcome often lies beyond our reach. Trusting in God gives us a sense of relief, a feeling of letting go, knowing that we don't have to carry every burden alone. One of the main reasons people find it hard to let go of worry is the desire for control. We want to believe that if we think through every detail, anticipate every possible outcome, and prepare ourselves for the worst, we can control the outcome. But life rarely goes according to our carefully laid plans. Trusting God, on the other hand, invites us to surrender control and lean on his wisdom rather than our own. This doesn't mean we sit back and do nothing. It means we take action but release the results into his hands. When we trust, we understand that there are limits to our power and knowledge, and we allow God to work in ways that are beyond our human capabilities. Trusting over worrying can be compared to planting a seed. When a farmer plants a seed, they do their best to ensure it has water, sunlight, and fertile soil, but they cannot make the seed grow. They cannot control the rain, the weather, or the forces of nature that will ultimately impact the crop. The farmer must trust that with proper care and patience, growth will occur. In the same way, when we face a challenge, we can prepare, take steps forward, and do what we can, but ultimately we need to trust that God will take care of the rest. Just as the seed grows in its own time, things in our lives will unfold in their own time, according to God's plan. Trusting over worrying also shifts our mindset. Worry focuses on potential negative outcomes, constantly highlighting what might go wrong. It drains our energy and pulls us away from the present moment, making it difficult to fully engage with the people around us or appreciate the blessings we already have. Trust, however, allows us to focus on what is possible. Trust lets us look at our challenges with hope, expecting positive outcomes rather than bracing for the worst. It allows us to recognize that no matter how dire a situation may seem, God can work in unexpected ways to bring good out of it. Trust opens us to possibilities that worry can't see, reminding us that we are never without hope. Trusting God over worrying also teaches us patience. Worry wants instant answers, it seeks immediate control and resolution. But trust reminds us that sometimes we have to wait and allow things to unfold in God's timing. Patience isn't always easy, especially when we're facing pressing problems or emotional struggles. Yet trusting God involves waiting with faith, knowing that His timing is perfect. Trusting in His timing helps us realize that just because we don't see immediate results, it doesn't mean God isn't working on our behalf. Often, delays in life serve a purpose we cannot understand at the moment. They may be preparing us, refining us, or aligning circumstances in ways that we wouldn't anticipate, but that ultimately serve our good. Another benefit of trusting over worrying is that it frees our minds and spirits. When we worry, we're constantly weighed down by stress, anxiety, and fear. These emotions can cloud our judgment, impact our health, even strain our relationships. Trusting God helps us to release these negative feelings and instead fill our minds with peace. This peace doesn't necessarily mean that everything around us is perfect. Rather, it means that we find calm in the midst of imperfection. This peace brings clarity and allows us to approach problems with a clear mind, able to make better decisions rather than react from a place of fear. Trusting over worrying also strengthens our faith. Each time we choose trust over worry, we reinforce our belief that God is in control and that He cares for us. With each experience of God's faithfulness, we build a track record of His goodness in our lives. This track record makes it easier to trust Him with future challenges. As our trust grows, we become less shaken by difficulties, knowing that we have a foundation that will hold strong through any storm. In practical terms, living with trust instead of worry can begin with small steps. When faced with a worry, we can pause, take a deep breath, and consciously choose to release that worry to God. Instead of dwelling on the what-ifs, we can remind ourselves of what we know to be true. God is good, He is in control, and He cares for us. This act of surrender doesn't mean we ignore our responsibilities. Rather, it allows us to focus on what we can do while leaving the rest in God's hands. It's a daily choice to let go of the need to control every outcome and instead walk in faith, trusting that God's plan is greater than our own. Ultimately, trusting over worrying is a transformative choice that frees us to live with peace, hope, and confidence. It's a powerful reminder that no matter what life brings, we have a source of strength that we can always rely on. Life is filled with challenges, some that we expect and others that catch us completely off guard. At times, these difficulties feel manageable, but there are moments when the obstacles before us seem overwhelming. In those moments, it's easy to feel weak, inadequate, or powerless. We might even start to wonder if we have the strength to make it through. But the truth is, we don't have to rely solely on our own strength. God's strength is greater than any challenge we face, and His power is available to help us in ways we could never achieve on our own. God's strength isn't limited by human capacity. While our own abilities are finite, God's power is limitless. In our most vulnerable moments, His strength is at its most powerful. The Bible reminds us in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." This means that God isn't looking for us to be invincible or self-sufficient. He understands our limitations, and rather than expecting us to be strong all the time, He invites us to lean into His strength. When we acknowledge our need for Him, we open ourselves up to His limitless power. When we encounter something that seems beyond our control, we may feel like there's no way forward. But God is able to make a way when there seems to be no way. His strength can overcome obstacles that appear impossible from a human perspective. Think about the story of David and Goliath, a young shepherd facing a giant equipped with nothing but a sling and a stone. From the outside, David's odds were impossible. Goliath was a seasoned warrior, strong and heavily armed, while David was inexperienced in battle. Yet David wasn't relying on his own strength to win that fight, he was relying on God. David went into that battle with faith, knowing that God's strength would carry him through. And that's exactly what happened. Goliath fell, not because of David's power, but because of God's strength working through him. In our own lives, the giants we face can seem just as intimidating. Challenges like financial hardship, health issues, relationship struggles, or even internal battles with anxiety or self-doubt can appear insurmountable. But just as God was with David, he is with us. His strength is more than sufficient for whatever we face. No matter how big our problems may seem, they are never too big for God. It's also important to remember that God's strength is consistent. Our own strength may fluctuate. We may feel capable one day and completely overwhelmed the next. But God's strength is steady and unchanging. He is a constant source of support and power. No matter how we feel or what circumstances arise, this consistency gives us something to rely on that's outside of ourselves, something that won't falter or fade. Turning to God's strength also brings peace. When we trust in our own abilities, we often feel stressed and anxious, wondering if we're doing enough or if we're capable of handling what's in front of us. But when we rely on God, we're able to release some of that pressure. We no longer need to have all the answers or carry every burden alone. We can do our part and then trust that God's strength will make up the difference. This trust allows us to face challenges with a sense of calm, knowing that we have divine support. In addition, relying on God's strength helps us grow. When we face challenges and invite God to work through us, we're often pushed beyond our comfort zones. We may discover new levels of resilience, courage, and faith that we didn't know were possible. God's strength doesn't just help us survive difficult times, it transforms us, helping us become stronger, wiser, and more faithful in the process. God's strength is like a foundation. No matter how strong the storm, a solid foundation keeps us steady. Life may throw unexpected challenges our way, but when we stand on the foundation of God's strength, we cannot be shaken. Even if we feel weak, the strength of the foundation remains. This foundation is the unbreakable promise that God will always be with us, that he will never leave us or abandon us. In moments when we feel weak or overwhelmed, we can find hope in the knowledge that God's strength is greater than anything we face. We don't have to carry the weight of every burden on our own. Instead, we can lean on him, drawing on his power to move forward, even when the road ahead is tough. God's strength allows us to keep going, to stand firm, and to face each challenge with courage, knowing that we are never alone in the fight. His strength is our assurance, our hope, and our unwavering support, no matter what life may bring. In life, we are often eager to see things happen immediately. We have goals, dreams, and problems we want solved, and we want them resolved on our timeline. Waiting can feel difficult, especially when we're facing challenges that seem urgent or when we have dreams we are passionate about. But sometimes the timing we want doesn't align with God's timing, and that difference can lead us to frustration, disappointment, or even doubt. However, trusting in God's timing can transform the way we experience life's waiting periods. While it can be challenging to surrender to a plan we can't see fully, God's timing is always perfect, even if it doesn't match ours. When we begin to understand and trust this, it becomes easier to let go of our impatience and find peace in the process. One of the biggest obstacles to trusting God's timing is our limited perspective. We can only see a small part of our lives and the events around us. We don't know what the future holds or how certain events will ultimately shape our lives. God, however, sees the entire picture. He knows what lies ahead and understands how each step we take today prepares us for tomorrow. There are times when we may feel ready for a specific outcome, but God in his wisdom may see that more growth or preparation is necessary before we're ready for that next step. We may want immediate success, but God may be leading us through a season of learning and development to prepare us for even greater success down the road. Trusting in God's timing also involves recognizing that some delays serve a purpose. In the Bible, we see countless examples of people who waited for God's promises to be fulfilled. Take Abraham and Sarah, for example. God promised them a child, but they had to wait years before that promise became a reality. During that time, they faced moments of doubt and frustration. However, through the waiting period, they grew in faith, and when their son Isaac was finally born, they experienced God's faithfulness in a profound way. This story reminds us that even when it seems like nothing is happening, God is working. Sometimes the delays we experience are God's way of setting the stage for something greater than we could imagine. Waiting on God's timing also helps us develop patience and trust. These are qualities that can only be cultivated through experience. In our fast-paced world, waiting isn't something we're often accustomed to. We're used to quick solutions and immediate responses, but patience is a strength that develops over time, especially as we face situations beyond our control. Each time we wait on God, we build our faith, learning to trust him more deeply and rely on his wisdom. When we look back on those times of waiting, we often realize that they were opportunities for growth and maturity that couldn't have happened any other way. In addition to helping us grow, God's timing protects us. There are moments when we may be praying for something we deeply desire, but God may see potential pitfalls or challenges that we are unaware of. Delays can sometimes be a form of divine protection, sparing us from consequences we may not foresee. For example, a delayed promotion at work might seem disappointing at first, but later we might realize that it allowed us to gain more skills or avoid a situation that would have been overwhelming or harmful. Trusting in God's timing means believing that his decisions are made with our best interests in mind, even when we don't understand them at the moment. Furthermore, God's timing brings blessings at the right moment. Sometimes we want to rush into a new season, but by waiting, we find ourselves receiving blessings at the perfect time. When we align with God's timing, the doors that open are often ones we didn't expect, and the opportunities we encounter can be better than anything we could have planned. This is because God knows what we truly need and when we need it. When we are patient and trust that he is orchestrating things for our good, we often find that what we receive is more fulfilling and purposeful. When we trust in God's timing, we also find peace. Waiting on our own terms can bring anxiety and stress as we try to force things to happen. When we insist on controlling the timing, we often end up feeling frustrated and worried. But when we surrender to God's plan, we find a peace that surpasses our understanding. We realize that we don't have to carry the burden of making things happen. Instead, we can rest in knowing that God is working in ways we cannot see. This peace enables us to focus on the present, enjoying the journey, rather than anxiously awaiting the destination. Another important aspect of God's timing is that it draws us closer to him. In seasons of waiting, we often find ourselves turning to God more, seeking his guidance and comfort. Waiting encourages us to pray, reflect, and lean into our relationship with him. It's often in these times that our faith deepens as we learn to rely on God's promises and trust his word. The waiting season can become a time of spiritual growth, where we become more attuned to God's voice and more connected to his presence. By drawing nearer to him, we build a foundation of faith that can sustain us through future challenges. When we look back on our lives, we often see that God's timing was indeed perfect. Situations that once felt delayed or frustrating now make sense as part of a larger plan. We begin to realize that the waiting periods were essential steps in our journey, leading us to outcomes we could never have anticipated. Each step, each delay, and each season of waiting worked together to create a path that ultimately brought us to where we needed to be. In the end, trusting in God's timing isn't about passively waiting. It's about actively surrendering our desires, plans, and expectations to him. It's about walking forward with faith, doing what we can, and trusting that God will take care of the rest. This trust frees us from the anxiety of controlling everything and invites us to experience peace, growth, and joy in the process. God's timing is indeed perfect, and when we learn to trust in it, we open ourselves to a life of deeper faith, greater peace, and blessings that come at exactly the right moment.